developing a digital learning strategy is not just putting the pieces in place. And there's, just like any program, there needs to be a framework. And everybody has different frameworks. So what framework do you think is important when companies are putting together a digital learning program?
I like Josh Berson's framework. He talks about, education, exposure, experience, and environment. Right. And, for me, that sometimes can get lost if you focus too much on the digital side, the technical side, which is really only the last E, which is around environment, right, which is the tools and so on that you use. So I think as you put together that digital strategy, you need to ensure that your learners are really getting the full experience. And by the full experience, I mean, they're getting the awareness, they're getting the formal education that you're offering to them. And there's, a lot of different thought around micro-learning versus in-depth learning, etc. They're getting the exposure, so they're getting mentoring, are they getting coaching and so forth. And then, are they getting the experience? So the models are still around the 70-20-10 of learning, and 70% is around experience. Right. It's about getting out there, it's about shadowing, and I think, in that way the tools can play a role as well, that you can use the tools that are available nowadays, like you can FaceTime and actually be on a sales call with a sales rep without physically having to be with them. Right. You can do presentations and role plays and so on using the technology. So it's a way of blending them together, and I think that's really important. I think the other thing not to lose sight of is that this whole digital world can also create risk. And so, for example, one of our programs, which was a highly technical curriculum, it was a 3-day face-to-face program with hands-on installation, configuration, etc. of tools, of our security tool, Stealth. We were asked to pull that whole thing online, make it completely on demand. And we were very uncomfortable with that as a learning organization, because in a way we lost control. We couldn't see whether they just put it on run and, right. Went out for a cup of tea. We wanted to ensure that it was asking questions and so on, but typically in online learning, you're testing recall, really not necessarily understanding to a certain extent. And so that really stretched my team. And what they did is around the whole online learning, they designed a certification program. They designed exams which tested understanding, but then equally they designed assignments, and they created a full lab environment that the learner actually has to go through and do a full installation, configuration, and so on, that can be watched. I mean,
it's the experiential piece,
exactly,
as opposed to the knowledge piece.
Correct, that whole experiential piece, and it's kind of fascinating because one of my trainers, I'll see when he's watching somebody do it, because he'll be sitting at his desk in the office in Bluebell, and he can be watching somebody who is in Sydney, Australia, walking through the lab, and he can actually watch all the steps that they do, and he can send through ideas to them when he can see that they're stuck. And we're doing that whole thing virtually. So, we were able to mitigate that risk of us not feeling comfortable that they actually knew what they were doing, but designing something else around it using technology.
So what's really interesting, like in my world of strategic IT organizations, so one of the big issues as personnel are now collaborating as part of teams is they need to, as we talked earlier, speak the language of the business, just like learning advisors and consultants need to do that. And when you're upskilling those personnel, the old school is just teach them stuff, teach them stuff, teach them stuff. And knowledge is one component, and experience is another. And what you've done here is you train them in the knowledge and test them in the knowledge, and then you train them in the experience, and you basically test them in the experience because it's real life. Yes. So now you know where the gap is, because someone may be really good at the knowledge piece, but they stumble and fumble through the experience piece.
Right.
Or it could be the other way around. You know, IKEA furniture is a great example. You know, how many people actually look at the instructions?
Oh, very few.
So it's not the knowledge piece.
Well, not at the start. They tend to come back to the instructions when it's not working so well.
So there are people that just go, I don't need to know. I'll just do it. I'll figure it out. But really, the knowledge piece and the experiential piece are really important. So I like your model.
And we've actually built on it. So two things to add to that. The first one is, yes, we get some of those people that say, I don't need to take the training. I know how to do this. I've been working on this tool. I'll go in and do it. And that's fine. Then go ahead. And we see, and if they do, and they are able to go through the certification and the lab work, and they finish, and they do it successfully, they get their certification. So we've built in an element of recognition of prior learning, or if they've had on-the-job experience, they can come and get certified officially by really just doing that component. So we allow for that. The other thing that this environment and you know, together with our whole learning management system and so on, is the analytics. So that's, I guess, one of the really interesting areas of learning now is because all of this is digital, we have all this analytical capability. So to the example that you've just said, I can see that the last 3 people that did that lab got stuck here. So I can in real time go and modify the training material, the knowledge, to go and make sure that I train that a little bit more
so
in depth, because I can see where that gap is. I don't have to wait for feedback or wait for people who might, you know, in 2 weeks' time send me a survey or something like that. I can see it and I can fix it. And so that's been really a valuable part for me about the analytics, is to, and also to see, you know, where are the interest levels. You know, we have ways of even tracking to see how long you stayed in the training and where you stopped. And I can see, oh, a lot of people seem to have a real interest in this area. Let me go and really push that part in our education curriculum. So it's kind of almost intelligent learning and production of content.
Yeah, that's cool.